Hello, Dr. Greg Gillum, CEO of Human Fusion. Today's article review comes from the Harvard Business Review, June 19th, 2019. It's called Why Authentic Workplaces Are More Ethical. The idea here, the premise is that people want to show up fully at work. They don't want to have a work identity and then have a home identity or a non-work identity. They want to be able to fully express themselves without having to compromise on their values or compromise on advancement or development opportunities. Now, if I were to quiz you and ask you which generation that most sounds like, you probably would get it right. That's the millennial generation, and I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with that. I love working with millennials, probably better or more than any other generation, period. But the reason that it's important for us as managers is because now millennials are the predominant workforce. Latest study, 35% of the workforce is millennials. Gen Xers like me, down to 33%, and baby boomers falling now to only 25% of the workforce. So, millennials like to work for brands, work for companies, work for value systems that match their own value systems. So the authors then looked at the identity that an employee feels, how they're integrated into the culture, and whether or not that would lead to more or less ethical behavior. And so what they did, and I'm not going to look into their data, but it's very interesting, fascinating data. They did it in an experimental group, so outside of the workforce. They did an experimental group, and they showed that that people who had sort of what I would call an identity crisis, meaning they had a work identity and a non-work identity. Those people tended to integrate more slowly into organizations, and those people had more ethical. When you asked them to make ethical choices, they made more unethical choices than people who were highly integrated. And then they did a workplace study. So they went into the workplace and actually looked at this, and they found exactly the same thing. People who had split identities, who were, again, poorly integrated into the system, made worse choices. They made unethical choices, like they falsified receipts on an expense report more often. They played more mean pranks. They had more evidence of harassing thoughts or behaviors or comments. So they played this out through this study. So what can we do about that as managers? The authors go through several different ways of increasing integration and decreasing this sort of split personality, making sure that people understand that they can come to work and be themselves. Number one is to give them some control over their job responsibilities. So whether it's their tasks, who they can develop relationships with, their mentoring interactions, what meetings they can and cannot go to. Give them some responsibility over that. That helps them to integrate. Number two, live your mission and values. So make sure that you take every opportunity to connect the company's mission and values and vision to other people's. Doesn't have to necessarily match, but you're making the effort to connect them in some way. So employees notice then when business practices go for their values, they also notice when they go against. So either way, though, just being transparent about that is really, really helpful. And that's the third thing, promote transparency with policies, processes, that type of thing. So hiring processes, promotion processes, how we deal with supply chains and partners outside of the organization, all those things, if we're very transparent about the processes and the policies, then that leads to employees feeling much better, much more clear about those types of things, and they integrate much better. And then don't force it. So this is obviously a strategy to use for Gen Xers, millennials, newer generations coming into the workforce. Not so much for senior generations. Don't force this attitude or don't force this idea on senior generations who may not care about it so deeply. So the bottom line is that understanding the value of authenticity in the workplace and taking active steps to promote it reduces the risk of unethical behavior in your organization and may save you a ton of headaches. If you like management-related videos like this, please subscribe to Human Fusion, and we'll keep you up to date on all the latest trends that are affecting management practice today. Thanks.